What's going on, everyone? Welcome to a Friday edition of Back Your Play with Q. I'm your host, as always, Rich Quinones, and we are presented by our wonderful friends over at Play It Again Sports, open 7 days a week, 1450 Clements Bridge Road. And we mentioned them throughout the spring, the football season, and now with summer right in full gear. We know you got a lot of golf heads out there. So if you guys are interested, listen, golf is hot. Inventory selection, they've got new, slightly used. It's never been larger right now in the market. And I can tell you right now, stop in. No one gives cash for the golf like they do. They give some fair trades. I'm telling you right now. They've got also for those coaches out there for baseball, t-ball, little league. If you guys are interested in some uniforms, also give them a call. They'll work with you. They'll partner up. They'll help do fundraising. They do everything. They got the weights. They got the free weights. They got the tees. They got the jerseys. They got the hats. They got the cleats. They are absolutely stockpiling up for the summertime. And I guess what, you start to say stockpiling up. I'm starting to see him rising up in the chair, which means he's putting a little more coin in the pocket. Our good friend, the prop Professor
Right.
Shine, kind enough to join us on a Friday as the draft left many of us scratching our head. We got the NBA, and I know we'll close with a little nugget from you when it comes to baseball and betting, but always good to talk to you. And hey, listen, I mean, I guess the biggest takeaways last night, right, draft wise, you look at what Atlanta did. You look at what Denver did. Here's another reason why I don't really listen to anyone when it comes to the draft. All we heard was it's going to be wacky and wild, and teams are going to be traded. And it's going to be the wild, wild way. Hey, man, everything basically kind of played out the first couple draft picks.
Well, I think one of the best Twitter follows is Old Takes Exposed during this week because it brings up all the times everybody was wrong and how much they were wrong, even Mel Kiper. Uh, but there's just too many. There's too many guys who are just making stuff up.
Yep.
And if you remember last year, the Will Levis.
Yep.
Remember, the Will Levis was supposed to go top two, rumored for one, top five, and then they videoed the poor guy with his girlfriend for about 3 hours, 4 hours, not getting drafted at all, which was painful. And then lo and behold, the guy plays and he wins a couple games this year. So overall, it's like nobody. The environment feeds itself to have this kind of guessing game and
Yep.
fake stuff. So like you, I've learned to ignore it. My God, I go back. How many drafts is this for you? Think about it. I mean, this is draft. I remember. Obviously, everybody remembers the hype around the Peyton Manning, Ryan Leaf
98.
Draft, and which probably would have melted Twitter with Ryan Leaf telling Bill Polian, "I don't know if I can come in for the interview. I got a weekend with my friends in Vegas," which was kind of funny. And then you go all the way back even before that. I remember the Jeff George draft.
Sure.
When he had the workout that scouts had. That's what Sports Illustrated obviously was huge, and scouts had said it's the best. Not only is it the best college quarterback workout ever, it might be the best quarterback workout ever. Every throw they had him make, they made. Yep. For people that were trying to kind of just peripheral fans at that time of college football and didn't follow the draft, everybody was just like, "What? How good is he? How's his arm?" And then from there, we leapfrog to today where people are already floating 17 different trades that the Patriots were going to make to get J.J. McCarthy, which now in hindsight may not have been a bad deal. The trade out of 3 to get McCarthy and then maybe pick up an extra pick. I don't know. I mean, it's tough to evaluate how these things will
Play out.
But I will say this. I went back just about 30, almost 40 years, about 35 years to see top 10 picks. And then I did a little charting of top 15 picks, and I used as my gauge or as my threshold is, were you an NFL starter? So you could tier it, say, did you start at least 3 years in the NFL? Did injury screw you up? And then were you an all pro? Like, what positions were the best? And by far, it's offensive guard, offensive tackle, and center. So if you group those three together, you're right about 70% of return. And then you have some anomalies like the guy went to here in Philadelphia, went to George Washington, went to Florida, Sharif, I can't remember his last name, went to Minnesota. And remember, he sued Minnesota for the injury that he had. So I kind of kept him to the side because he wasn't an all-pro.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have a weird situation like a Tony Mandrich, who everybody says is one of the world's biggest busts of all time, but then they forgot
he played well.
That he came back after that first contract.
Yep.
The Colts re-signed him, and he was a 3-year starter for Peyton Manning.
Yep.
Or one of those 3 years, or two of those 3 years was for Peyton Manning. So that's kind of in the middle because he did get drafted right after Troy Aikman, right before Deion Sanders.
Well, it's all hindsight, right? Because we look at the quarterback position, and that's where we gauge it.
Because Keyshawn Johnson was drafted first. Terrell Owens and other guys were drafted behind him that ended up going to the Hall of Fame. So using that criteria, the linemen are the safest bets. And then obviously the worst bet is quarterback.
Right. The
return on quarterback for how many guys that were drafted in the top 12 is horrible.
Yep.
So you see what's happening. It's not really the players' fault. They really shouldn't be there. I'll go to one that sticks in my head if you remember. Everybody remember the Wentz Goff draft. How many people have seen Wentz play?
Yeah.
At that point, only thing they had was
just a handful of games.
Sure, but he had a great workout. We checked all the other boxes, but for him to be picked second in that draft was a reach. Goff was even a reach, but quarterback is so important. I'm not telling you anything that you don't know. Quarterback's so important. You see these reaches, but how it ties into this draft is you're starting to see weird reaches like this Penix, and even to a point, maybe Bo Nix is a reach. Everybody trusts Sean Payton. I like to remind people that, Drew Brees was great before Peyton got to him.
Sure.
Did he make him better? That's debatable. I think Drew Brees was already an all-pro. The only thing he had was that shoulder issue. And, Brees turns out he obviously is going to be a Hall of Famer. Is Peyton, the quarterback whisperer? He's going to change Bo Nix, who probably in a normal world would be drafted probably 35th or 45th or something like that. Can he make the reaches work? I don't know. I mean, Zach Wilson should press pause on everybody. And then of course your team doesn't get a quarterback.
Which I didn't think they were, to be honest, because of the money.
I thought they might trade out, but McCarthy was there. You think they should have took McCarthy?
No, I didn't want any parts of. I wasn't the only quarterback I might have been feeling a little bit was Penix, but I didn't think he was a top 10. I didn't think he's a first round quarterback. Other than that, they brought in Locke for a reason. He's going to push Daniel Jones. They needed an offensive weapon. I had no problem with the wide receiver. I had no problem going with the tackle. I know once that the Chargers made their pick, it opened up the door, obviously, for the Giants to grab Neighbors. But again, but to your point, you just can't pick a quarterback to pick a quarterback, right? You just can't do that. And when you look what Atlanta did. So everyone's sitting there talking about Penix, who's 24 years of age. You just gave Kirk Cousins 100 and something odd million, 80 million guaranteed. He's going to be fine. No one went through Kirk Cousins. They're trying to compare this to years ago to like the Rodgers or the Steve Young. But look at the contract of those quarterbacks at the moment, like Brett Favre, Joe Montana. They just signed Cousins as a free agent and gave him that money. And a cup of coffee later, they're signing this kid, right? So it's like, you know, and when Arthur Blank goes to the GM and starts basically, you know, looking at him, asking questions, I just don't know. I don't know if that's worse than what Denver did grabbing Bo Nix. I don't know, man. And it's nothing about the players themselves. It's about where they're being picked.
At least Knicks, you know, at least Denver needs a quarterback. You know, I get it. Yeah. They got Wilson in, but they want to have a competition. They want to see what's going on. I think, you know, you want to have, you know, lack of a better stockpile of these guys. Right. If you can get away with it, you know, you can't kind of skirt the rules the way Beathard and Gibbs did decades ago, where, you know, Mark Rippon was on the roster, I think, for like 5 years learning the system.
But that's what I was about to just ask you. If you're fine now,
you really can't do that anymore. Now you get the guys in free agency. Yeah. I remember when they first put the cap in, and remember Phil Simms was you couldn't re-sign these guys for more than like $1.5 million a year. There was that weird quirk that first couple of years of the cap. Because remember, we mentioned on this show before.
Yep.
That, you know, Buddy Ryan was coaching Arizona. And he wanted Simms.
Yep.
And Simms was like, "I'd love to do it, but I can make more being on TV." Yep. So that's kind of it went away for a little bit until you realize they're going to.
And they wound up signing Boomer Esiason anyway. So go figure, right?
That's right. After that, and remember, Esiason finished out pretty well. I remember he had mid-90s. At Arizona, remember he had the back-to-back 500
plus yard games. Yep.
I mean, they were just like, listen, we're not any good. Let's just sling it around, which has got to be for an older quarterback.
Love it.
Wasn't making the max. He's got to be like, yeah, let's sling it around.
Yep.
Listen, I'm not going to try to make sense of the facts. I think they have a lot of internal problems. I guess. What I do like what Fontenot did is, or actually with the front office in general, these guys get fired. So why not do what you want to do? It's the only positive thing I can say. I wish more coaches and GMs would think like that. I'm going to do things my way. I'm not going to listen to anybody. This is what I'm going to do. Sure. And if it backfires, it backfires. The worst thing you want to have happen is you do a wishy-washy kind of thing. And, you know, I kind of really wanted Coach A, and I ended up getting Coach C, and I really didn't want this. And then your team goes 8-8 3 straight years, and you get fired anyway. So, but I will say that they're obviously not in agreement with the quote-unquote experts of the world. But even other GMs are starting to scratch their heads of what they're doing, you know, because you don't sign a guy that has no trade clause and then pick up what can nicely be termed as, you know, as a luxury guy, you know, as an add-on,
right?
An add-on. You're not drafting for need. You're drafting what you think is the best player, and he's not the best player available. It's a reach that could make them look. I mean, they're going to look like geniuses if Cousins goes down in week 6. And
of course, coming off that injury, that's the only argument you can make. Coming off an ACL, coming off the Achilles tear. But again, there's always smoke screens, like, because the Giants all week long, all you heard was Rich Eisen saying they're done with Jones, they're done with Jones, they're done with Jones, or going with a quarterback, May or McCarthy. Here we go. They're going to trade up, they're going to trade down. Everything's a smoke screen. And then you have to see how all the other drafts play out, all the picks kind of play out. To form, to be quite honest with you. I mean, you'll find your gems in the second, third round, but that's why I can't stand, let's grade the draft. Really?
Yeah, it's tough. Well, yeah, there's something to write about.
What I
think it would be great is you did this. This is why I like Old Takes Exposed, because these guys want to grade the draft. Let's grade the grader of the draft. You know, when it comes back, let's grade. It's easy to make predictions. This is why gambling is such for all its faults, it's the purest form of prediction, because when money's involved, people take it serious. And if you don't want to lose money, if you know, reputation is garbage, because a lot of times if it's brought back to people that are making predictions, they can easily say, well, I'm going to be wrong some of the time, but if you're right, you can just hammer the time you were right. This Penix draft kind of feels like that. He's going to get some equity. The whole staff will get some equity if Cousins does get hurt again, or if Cousins
struggles,
is ineffective.
Yeah.
He's going to be right in the middle. Cousins cares more. My knock on Cousins for years has always been, this is why he stinks in primetime games. He cares more about his percentage, his completion percentage than he does about actually winning the game. And I guess if you realize, hey, I don't have the squad here to go the whole way,
I'm not going to take risks.
Maybe that's kind of how you think. Maybe think about yourself.
Yeah.
And it's definitely paid off for him because he's got 80 million guaranteed, I think at least. So if he was to sit here on this show, he'd probably go, listen, have I been wrong? We're going to get on the title. He said, yes. Mahomes has all the titles, Neither does, and he can chalk down the list.
Yeah. By the way, case in point, the 4th down play against the Giants in the playoffs, it was pretty much a 7-yard check down on 4th.
That is his career in a nutshell. You need a first down, and he checked it off. And then explained, I thought maybe he could break a tackle. That's not what you do.
Remember the old thing with prime time when Chris Byrne would be like, you need 5 yards, you get Leroy Hort, he picks up 3. You know what I'm saying?
It's great. Yeah, get you 3. Great for the stats.
Right.
Outside of that, we weren't able to get on for me to just do the scheduling complex for me to say what I was going to bet or what I did bet. But a lot of these things change rapidly 24 hours, 24 hours before the draft. A couple years ago, I was lucky that there was a slow moving offshore book that still had plus 3,800 for Baker Mayfield to go first. And then it went to 2,800. And, sharper books, bookmaker, Pinnacle had even money. So the word was out that he was getting picked first. Now you run the risk of getting your account banned or whatever, but I snuck in a few, and that's something that happened the day of. And now I think it's much harder to do that. But I was looking for some other things like you can arb a lot of this. I had decent arb, but like, how many total SEC players were going to get picked? How many total Pac-10 players were going to Pac-12, whatever it's called, we're going to get picked. There was 7.5 under plus 220, and then there was 7 minus 105. There was weird numbers where you could, if you decided to go that route, that was an opportunity. How many linemen to be picked in the first round was hovered around 10 and 9.5, and then a juice 9. So I took some of those. I did have Penix over. I had Penix going in the second round, which obviously might make me biased about me being aggravated to pick for 8. Not really though, because if think about it, if he gets picked, I don't know, 26th, I lose. So. But I thought I got a good number. I actually got plus money on it. But that was a loser. I arbed the J.J. McCarthy because some places had that he went all the way down. People believed this trade that New England was going to make it.
Yep.
It was under 5.5 minus 120 some places.
And you can thank Harbaugh for that because he blew the smoke on McCarthy, right?
He did. And then he came in late and snuck out another bet that I made. I did make that they would take a lineman. And then I laid some good juice that Joel would go under 7.5.
Nice.
And 7. You had to lay a lot, so you don't win a lot. But I guess to focus on my losers, it was the Penix. It was under 4.5 quarterbacks. Under 4.5 quarterbacks, I had some crazy number, like plus 240 or something. And I thought there was a shot because if Penix doesn't get picked, there's a shot that Knicks doesn't get picked,
Right.
And now you're sitting there begging for that last one if you bet over. it's a loser, but I like that there was plus money. I guess the pick I'm most proud of was probably none of them. I did squeeze out a win, but I guess offensive players at 21, total offensive players in the draft being 21, what turned out to be good. I thought the number was high, and the more I thought about it, I thought it had a shot. It was plus money. And then the first 14 picks are all offensive players. I think he got a really good shot. I'm trying to think of some bets that went. The Falcons to pick a wide receiver was 100-1 just a few weeks ago. It went down to 65 and 75-1. I think just out of maybe people just making pure, lobs.
Right.
But there's somebody that probably had that. I think the Raiders to pick a tight end was a good dog. I think it was something like 5-1 or something. Because I think Tom Telesco at the Raiders just figured he's the best player available. And he followed him. I think the Eagles made out. And if you saw Micah Parsons' reaction, he said, "I can't believe the Eagles keep getting this lucky." Was his
That's because he wants to play for the Eagles so friggin' bad.
He does want to play for the Eagles.
I mean, come on,
he
man.
Does. But it's funny because that guy might be, him and the Alabama guy might be the two best corners, and the Eagles
grab one of them.
They have to be like licking their chops, saying, "Wow, look at this."
Yeah. And Kansas City grabbed another wide receiver, Xavier Worthy from Texas.
And I thought that was unbelievable. He's the fastest guy in the draft, I believe, And with the way Mahomes can make these guys look good, if he can catch even a little bit, it's you know what I mean?
Better than what they had.
Like the Raiders guy years ago, the guy ran a 4.140.
James Jett.
Right. James Jett. I'm thinking of Wright. It was Alexander Wright. Remember him back in the day? He could fly. The guy could fly. He couldn't catch. There are some interesting early offensive rookie player of the year numbers already. I can tell I got up early. Of course, Khalid Williams is going to be the favorite, but I think offensive rookie of the year is different than rookie of the year. So it's like that. It's like that booby prize of whoever is not the quarterback. So of course, Marvin Harris is the favorite, but he's 6-1. You have Odunze is 20-1, 18-1, I think, at a couple stateside places, probably DraftKings, and Xavier Worthy is 16-1. Then you have Bo Nix at 16-1. And then you have Brock Bowers coming in at 25-1, which are probably 35-1, which is incredible. He's a tight end. It should be like 125-1. But it's funny they have some of those numbers. This early, they probably the max bet they'll take is, a few hundred. But it's interesting that there's already numbers. If there's already numbers, they're bad. Just think of it that way. Because somebody's going to come out of the woodwork in the second and third round. This is where the draft, I think, for people that are fans, this is where the draft, I think, your favorite team is really important is the second and third round. That's where the scouting department is really doing their homework. And if you go back and look at second and third round picks versus teams' first round picks, you'd be surprised at the success of the second and third round picks.
No, it's just, like I said, everything. It's always a crapshoot. It's fun to watch how things kind of play out.
It is interesting, and it gives you. There's a lot of juice there.
Yeah.
This is, what did somebody say? It's the second most important NFL day of the year. I don't believe that. I think it's probably the fifth or sixth. But for the teams that don't make it, like if you're the Carolina Panthers, you might not care about the NFC, AFC championships and the Super Bowl as much as you care about the draft. For years,
you're rebuilding.
Look at your team, the Giants. For years, that was your, draft day's coming.
But that's why I knew they weren't going to take. That's why I knew they weren't going to take a quarterback, because their moves in the offseason showed they were running it back with Daniel Jones. I mean, it's just, you bring
It's
in
true.
guys.
And think about the way the season is, Rich. We talk about this on air and off. There's more teams make the playoffs now. You don't need to be super, super duper team. You get into the playoffs
Anything
and
can
you see
happen.
what happens. And it's easier to pass now. Your quarterback had flashes of brilliance before he got hurt. Yeah,
Flashes, far and few.
the way this thing, if you play good defense, you don't ask too much of your quarterback.
Yeah.
Maybe you can purdy your way into the NFC Finals.
So talking about big nights with the draft last night, the NBA goes against the draft. I mean, come on, whatever. I was flicking back and forth. I just wanted to see the Giants selection. I was obviously glued on the Sixers and the Knicks. Let me just start by saying this. Joel Embiid, I don't care about the 50. He's such a friggin' dirty player, man. He is such a friggin' punk. I
Did
cannot.
you like that? Did you like the
No.
butt offensive foul that wasn't called? He used his
I
butt.
can't take it with this guy. And everyone knew. I tweeted it out. Listen, did they get screwed with a couple calls late in game 2? Did they have a collapse and choke? Did the
Sure.
Sixers? Absolutely. But this is the NBA. So you knew full well that the refs were going to even up the playing field back home in Philadelphia. But come on, man. For him to go to the line 21 times and the Knicks 19 as a team, are you
Yeah,
freaking?
it's so obvious that they were going to give him every call possible. I think I'm not sure how to look at this. I thought this is a tough game when you're up 2-0 in the NBA.
Hey,
Unless
Knicks always
you're,
lose game 3s, by the way. Knicks have
yeah,
historically
it's
lost game.
true. But if you're an evenly matched team or relatively evenly matched, uh, really tough to get up 3-0. You don't see it that much. You see it when a team's much better, like the Nuggets.
Sure.
The Nuggets, Lakers, and that's done, by the way.
Oh, kidding me?
I was
That
going
was
to
done
wait.
after 2-0.
Yeah, I could wait, but if you go back and look at all the series, we run this, I think, every year in the NBA. If teams up 3-0
Done.
in a 7-game series, a huge percentage of them, I would say none have come back.
Yeah, it's a done deal. It's a wrap. You can hear it by
Right.
the Lakers and what LeBron's
Only
saying.
only a handful have made it game 7, which the Celtics did last year.
Yep.
Then the rest of them are losing in game 5 or getting swept. And I was even surprised of the high amount of teams that don't even show up for game 4. Now I'm going back. I go back all the way 30. I go all the way back to the Supersonics when they not Supersonics, the Nuggets when they had Mutombo versus Utah.
8th seed.
Yeah, Utah gets up 3-0. The Nuggets make it 3-3. And at that time, I think that was like 1 or 2, only the first or second time that had happened in like forever. It was just so point being made is I've already bet the Nuggets to win game 4. But digress to a close series like the Knicks Sixers. I thought the Sixers would win. I bet it that way. But 21 foul shots is kind of funny. He's not getting fouled on every play. Some of the early fouls, the reach in, and then he comes out in first quarter, he puts his knee, which on replay, I'm like, hey, what did he do? I'm looking for like the head and all. Then you have Kyle Lowry slapping
Lowry's another
Dante
one,
DiVincenzo in the head and not even trying. And what's lost in game 2 with all the poor fouls and Nick Nurse not getting the timeout. And if Larry makes his 2 foul shots, the game's over.
Correct.
This is a guy. He's a guard. Number 1, he's been in the NBA forever, and he's got a big mouth. Like, make your foul shots.
Yeah, that's a fair point.
Go up 5. People are getting all over Kendrick Perkins. The fouls didn't. How can you say it's on us? Ultimately, it is going to be on you. Every time somebody complains about the refs, there usually is a time period we can look and say, "Well, why don't you do this?" And the Sixers was make the 2 foul shots. You're NBA. There's no reason.
It's 2 things. They had a couple bad turnovers the Knicks did late. with Brunson, but I still go back, and you can appreciate this. You're talking about the refs and the disparity and the pull
Yeah, I was just
reports.
speaking of game two. Yeah,
Right. You go back to 88 game 7, right? Detroit and the Lakers. And the whole
oh,
argument was, hey, listen, that foul Lambeer on Kareem wasn't because of what you did at the moment. It was for the calls that we never got you on, right? It was all leading up to it. And
true.
that's right. I mean, so nothing
It's
35 years
true.
later, 40 years later, it still hasn't changed,
Hey,
right?
I'm still mad about well, yeah, you're right. It's just
Right.
I was going to say about the Maverick series that they should have won when the Heat beat them,
When
and
they were up in the finals.
yeah, Bennett Salvatore. I had a friend of mine like
Yep.
3-4 years after that send me a text. He was like, "Hey, I just seen Dwayne Wade walking down the street. Bennett Salvatore gave him another foul."
Yeah. It's,
It
it's,
was 4 years later, so it's like, I think that was 2006. It's obvious. There's some charts out on a few of the decent websites that run analytics and how refs call games during the regular season. And
as
now,
opposed to the playoffs.
obviously, they're letting a lot of stuff go. That's why you're seeing a ton of unders. Um, I was tending to play teams that play any kind of defensive regular season, a la Cleveland and
Yep.
Orlando.
Huh.
And I
Right.
just kind of use that to play more of their unders because some people were getting scared when they're saying 199 and 203. I didn't play the Knicks Sixers under last game, which got blown away.
And by the way, they get the benefit of the scheduling quirk too. The Sixers do. You get another day of rest for Embiid. I don't like that. Like I mean, come on, we're not playing today.
It's not exactly fair. Yeah,
We're not playing Saturday. We're playing Sunday.
Saturday's weird. You actually probably would have been better off skipping last night and playing tonight. There would have been a reason for it because you don't want to go against the draft. So the NBA had gotten together with who was it, TNT or whatever. If they got together with the programming and said, "Listen, we're going to move that game to tomorrow," people might have said, "Well, you give Embiid an extra day, right?" But at least it wouldn't have been between 3 and 4. But it was 4 huge game too. My point being is, you would have had a reason. Right. It's going to hurt it's good. If I was running the network, I would agree to it because I say, listen, I don't want to go against the draft in the Northeast.
Yeah, but you got 3 games on tonight and you got 4 games on Saturday.
Is there a reason why the Sixers aren't playing Saturday?
No idea. I have absolutely no idea. You got Bucks, Pacers, Clippers, Mavs, Timberwolves, and Suns tonight. And then Saturday, you got the full slate starting at friggin' 1:00. You could have easily had the Sixers play either tonight or give Cleveland, give them another day, whatever. And then put the Sixers and the Knicks on Saturday, 3:30 ABC or TNT. And instead you're going to get, and here's the other thing, you're going to get the Knicks and the Sixers, the early game, 1:00, which if this was Madison Square Garden, totally different animal, totally different feel. Trust me, I know what I'm talking about. I don't need to see. Yeah, Sixers and the Knicks, 1:00.
People are going to watch it. Everybody in New York's going to watch it.
Yeah.
I think that has to be the only thing, is that the extra day is worth so much more to have because you pretty much have Sunday to yourself.
No, but point being, why wouldn't you put that game at 3:30?
That's a good question. I mean, so obviously the last game.
Clippers and Mavericks will be 3:30. Bucks and Pacers 7, and then you have Minnesota and Phoenix at 9:30. So you have
that game will get done at midnight. Phoenix game will get done at midnight.
No, I'm not watching Minnesota and Phoenix. That series is over too.
Series is done. I love the first round. I always have. Even back when Barkley was playing, when Barkley's Suns and you had some juice. Remember they were down 0-2. They were down 2-0 to the Lakers. The Shaqless Lakers.
Remember when it was best of 3?
Yeah, that's what I mean. It was best.
Oh, yeah.
And they had to win game 3, and they went and won 3. I'm sorry, I got the years mixed up. when it was best of three, he lost to the Lakers, but it was the old Lakers,
Mm,
the really bad Lakers. It was pre-Shaq, pre-Kobe, and they were down 0-2.
yeah.
Uh, so as far back as that, the first round, I've always liked.
That's
I
a
like it
rarity,
even more.
man.
I like it even more now because of
The
the
play
best of
in.
seven. I
Yeah.
think it adds
Yeah.
some juice.
Yeah.
It hurts the regular season a little bit, but I don't think that's fair. But I do think the Knicks are going to win Game 3. So I hate to tell the fans, but I can see.
I don't see a line. Did you see a line yet for that game?
I did. They were.
I would say 4.5 Sixers are favored by.
I did, but I was looking for actually the best money line. I'll tell you in a minute. But you know right around what it's going to be.
Yeah.
So then at that point, I'm just looking for the best number. And I do have some futures here. I had a Nuggets future. I have a Nuggets future, as you know, to win the whole thing. I did chalk.
Yep. Yep.
But
Boston and
I said on your
Nuggets.
show last week that if you're going to take a flyer, take
Dallas.
a flyer on the Mavericks.
Yep.
And then Game 1, they don't show up.
Yeah.
But I bet Game 2.
How about Miami?
That's incredible.
I mean, is that, that's an aberration. You're not going to be able to knock down, what was it, 13 something on threes and shoot 50 something %. I mean, I still think the Boston Celtics win the series easily, but
I like Celtics in Game 3 as well.
Yeah.
The line is right around 9.5. They're probably good. But I could see the series going 6 games. They're not going to lose again at home. Like you just mentioned, they have to play unconscious. Sixers are open 4.5.
4.5. That's what I thought. Okay.
So it'll be right. It's going to look like Game 4, but I do like the Knicks. I don't think he's going to shoot 21 foul shots again. And then just for the record, Denver the Nuggets are a low number, and I think they will win.
Wow,
they will win Game 4.
3.5. I would pounce on it. I think they blow them out.
Well, I like the money line. You're going to
20.
get a money line somewhere in the range. I'm not even cheating here. I'm just.
I think the Nuggets blow them out. I think if once they go up double digits, you're going to see the Lakers quit.
Just to be safe, I'm going to play the money.
Okay.
Because they did. Remember last year, same thing happened, and I think they lost by 1 or 2. Remember,
Yeah.
LeBron had to play at the end of the game. I think to tie it or win it. So it was almost like it was nip and tuck. It was close. Yeah. And then they were like, you know what, let's play a quarter for our season kind of thing.
Yeah.
And it still wasn't good enough.
Right.
So,
I hear what you're saying.
Yeah, that I do think they'll win. The 3.5 is probably priced right, but I would actually agree with you that there'll be more of a chance of Denver winning by 10 or 11 than them actually losing the game.
Right.
So in that case, and all line could benefit some people who play, Denver -7 and get back plus money. You can get Denver money line be right around 150. I think if you can get anything in the 150 range, I don't think you want to pay more than 155. That's just for money line. The Knicks, right now, you can get back. I was hoping to get back, 150. Yeah, that's available. Circa has plus 160 on the Knicks, so I think it's a good bet if you want to mix it up and play plus the points and some money line. I think that would be a decent bet for Game 3. Does make the series interesting though if it goes 2-2 in a super close game.
Starting to tighten up.
It's good for the NBA because you don't have too many blowouts, and I think the Suns, the way they looked, I mean, how do you think about how the Suns are? I think the Timberwolves, I don't like the Timberwolves in game 3, but I could see the Timberwolves winning game 4.
The
They
problem
got to
with
right the ship. They looked old and tired.
well,
and
you get
Suns. I actually watched that game Tuesday.
you got nothing from Beal. You got nothing from Beal. You got Booker. You got Durant. You got nothing from Beal. I mean,
wow, it just looked awful. And since we're just going to do a cover all, I'm not sure what to think about Pacers Bucks, because with Giannis out, it was Pacers Bucks come out, crush game 1.
I don't like that series.
Lose game 2. It's very, very close. Nip and tuck. Pacers are decent sized favorites for game 3. So I could see them obviously winning game 3. I'm more interested in the Clippers Mavs because I think every game is going to be good. Yeah, I think the first game was an anomaly. I think every game could look like game 2. And if you're not an NBA fan or you're a casual fan, I would watch that game because Kyrie and Luka will shoot from everywhere, anywhere, either hand.
That's why I'm inclined, even tonight, I'm inclined to sprinkle a little bit on the total, on the over. I think it's sitting at 212. I kind of like a 113, 110, 115, 118, 115 type of game.
I'm on the fence. I mean, I actually like the Clippers a little bit with 4.5. You start seeing these lines in baseball, 4.5, 5, 3.5. That means serious smart bettors don't know what to do.
Right.
Sides in the NBA are incredibly hard anyway. A couple years back, I think 2014, 2015, I noticed a little bit of an angle, and I think I won like 15 out of 16 sides in NBA playoffs, which is really rare. But it focused on defense and defensive teams, and threw in how refs were calling certain things, and it worked out in the earlier and middle rounds. I must not have been the only one playing that, because it's caught up. The market is caught up, and no longer can you focus on that. But then you also have these matchups where you don't have the best defense. You have good defense versus good defense in a series like Orlando and Cleveland.
Yep.
You don't have a team that's really poor defensively, and you have two decent teams, and you're seeing it in the results that games are going under, and they're kind of like to watch. But it should be a fun weekend.
Yeah.
And
what do you got on baseball?
So
I know you got a little nugget on.
Plays I'm playing for
I know you got a little nugget on baseball too.
Well, if you're paying attention to baseball, I know the diehards are, and of course, in this part of the region of the country, obviously people are looking at the Mets. The Mets had a nice little series. They went out, won the first 2 against the Dodgers, and then dumped to San Fran. Dodgers are having a problem, keeping up with their expectations a little bit. They're going to right the ship. This season is so long.
That's the thing.
They play, it's like a marathon. They're not going to come out and win the first 3 miles.
Right.
You think they are, but
right.
As long as they hover around, and then what they're going to do is like the big time Yankees used to do. Hang around, get Colorado in for 4, hammer that team, get Tampa Bay in for 4, then they go to Tampa back when Tampa Bay was no good. All of a sudden they're staring at 10-2 their last 12.
Correct.
And they have another 12-game sequence, and they run out 9-3. And you're like, wow, what the hell's going on?
And now you're 25 games over. You're 25 games over.
25 games over, and when they were 27-23, everybody's like, what's wrong with the Yankees? This is what the Dodgers are going to do. The other end of the spectrum is how bad will the White Sox be? And people that are
3-22
and look at it, and it's outside of the '88 Orioles. This is the worst start since 1903. I didn't look up 1903 because I don't care about 1903 start. I like everything post-war, but this is bad now by any metric. Of course, the '88 Orioles started out. This is what's interesting. They started 0-21, 3-24. They threw 27 games before they won Game 3. They still had a better season by 9 games, 8 games, 7 games better than the 2018 Orioles. 2018 Orioles only won 47 games. The '88 Orioles came back and won 53.
Yeah.
So I tend to look at streaks. These really, really bad teams. What did they do and who did they beat in the regular season? Because you have a lot of rec bettors who think, well, I'm just going to play -1.5 run against them for the whole year. But if you did that against the A's won 27 one-run games last year. That you would have won if you laid the 280 or 240 or 210 or 310. Turns losses into wins into losses. So you want to try to figure out where will the White Sox end up, and obviously they're not going to end up, 12-98.
They'll win. They'll win 40 games
or whatever it is.
Now they'll win 40 games. It's just a matter of
they're going to win 40 games.
Yeah.
So if I went back and looked at the teams that won 55 or less,
like the Tigers a couple years ago. Tigers were one of those teams really bad.
Last year, of course, the White Sox only won 60, and they dumped almost as much as the A's did. And the A's last year, people thought they were going to be historically terrible. I went back and looked at some streaks where, like, if you were doing what a novice would do, so I'm going to bet against them. I'm just going to bet against them. Where did you get hurt? Well, remember the year Altuve, I think, was either a rookie. The Astros were really bad. They lost 111 games that year. Really bad. They had a series where they went into Anaheim. They were Anaheim at the time, I believe. They went into the Angels, and they swept them on the road. So to show you how really rare that is, none of the other really bad teams went on the road and won more than 2 games at one site. Detroit and the Orioles split it. So they won the last 2 games at Milwaukee, I think it was Milwaukee, and then 2 games at the next series. So they won 4 road games. So really what you want to look for is, where did you want this to become a martingale where you're betting 100. Well, I'm going to bet 300. I'm going to bet 400. You could actually martingale against these teams. Yeah. Of course, by the end of the martingale, you'd be betting, 4,000 to win $100.
Yeah. Say that for the blackjack players.
You do not ever want to be in. And I'll give you an example. Oakland last year won 6 straight. Now, it was at home, but they won 6 in a row.
Right.
And they absolutely tortured people who were thinking, here they come the A's. But now, there's a complicated way to chop it up and to really get into, well, who's beating them? Like, who did the A's beat? The A's beat Detroit 3 in a row. Detroit's no good. So there is a little bit of an angle if you can identify who the elite teams are. Obviously, if the Dodgers struggles, they're an elite team.
Right.
So if you can identify 4 or 5 elite teams, they always beat the crap out of the teams who look like that 2018 Orioles. Case in point, what we just mentioned about when the Yankees used to get good. Colorado would come there, and Colorado was like a 21 or 22 win game. Road team wins. They were going to lose 55, 60 games on the road. Maybe they would sneak one in against the Yankees. Your bet is like, they're probably not. And lo and behold, they would just dump. They would get their win against one of these in-between teams. Colorado would go, they go on a road trip and go 3-10 and win none of the games against the elite teams. So how does that factor into the White Sox now? Well, if you're going to bet against the White Sox, don't bet them when they're going to play the Marlins, because they might beat the Marlins.
Right.
You
They
know,
got a series. They're
might
playing Tampa.
touchy.
Yeah.
Touchy. They could win a home game against Tampa. They could win 2 home games against Tampa. Now, when they go on the road like they just did here in Philly, they're probably going to lose all 3.
Right.
Which they did. They go at Atlanta, probably going to lose all 3. Now, somebody pointed out to me, said, well, you know, A's won 2 against Atlanta. Yeah, but they did it at home. Still, a little bit tough to do. More importantly, they didn't sweep. So, again, if you were martingaling, you got your money back in game 3.
You know what's funny about
they're going to be right around 50 games. They're probably going to win 50 games. I actually looked at the Septembers, because now you have different pitchers coming in. There are those teams those teams that their opponents that are kind of out of it, they tend to beat. So pretty much the Septembers, these teams kind of push money back and forth.
Yeah.
You don't really get rich on them in September. So if you're going to win money on them, I think you'd be careful with them at home, and you lay it on the road, but you're going to lay some numbers now, because obviously the word's out. You're going to have to lay 310 and 330. I think you have to be careful if you have a good team or a decent team and you have your 4th pitcher going. They could dump to the White Sox, and I see no reason to play that.
Yeah.
Just saying.
Which is crazy, by the way, because coincidentally enough, that O's team fired Ripken Sr., I think 6 games in. They hired Frank Robinson. And by the way, their first win of that season came against the Chicago White Sox. You can look it up.
That's funny.
So we come full circle. So
that's right.
All right, brother. Well, listen, man, next week we got a lot more NBA, obviously with baseball. We'll probably be able to even start to tinker a little bit and maybe look at some futures in the NFL when the smoke is kind of settled with the draft. But always appreciate it, my friend. And of course, the prop from our good friends over at Play It Again Sports, 1450 Clements Bridge Road, the official sponsor of BYP throughout the week. And of course, on a Friday edition. Have a good weekend, my friend, and put a little coin in the pocket.
You too. Thank you.